Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain. We are trying to stay cozy as it is a bit rainy outside today, so I am procrastinating on taking my pups out on their last evening walk before I start to finish reading this book that I have that I am enjoying so hecking much. It's not the book I'm about to review because I haven't finished the other one yet. Ow! I hit my elbow. Sorry. But I'm really, really loving this book. I have maybe 75 pages left. I will be reviewing this in the next few days. So, The Lich Before the Darkness by Timothy Stormcrow, so good so far. But that's not the one we're talking about. We are talking about The Spirit Collection of Thorne Hall by J. Ann Thomas. And this book, I picked it up because I love a good ghost story. I love a good ghosty gothic book in a big haunted house. Love it. I wish The Haunting of Hill House was a little bit more spooky like the movie or like the TV show rather than psychological because I loved The Haunting of Hill House movie and TV show. The book was not bad. It was actually pretty good, but again, more psychological. It's almost like that person's mental spiral down into insanity, so to speak. But the Spirit Collection of Thorne Hall. At first, I picked it up thinking that particular title was going to be where each chapter or each part was going to be maybe another ghost story. Like you were going to get different ghosts within the house for the chapters. And I have encountered that. It's kind of like an anthology of ghost stories. And I guess just the way the title phrased it, that's what I thought I was getting into. But I was sadly mistaken. I was not sadly, maybe gladly mistaken is a better way to say it. But this book releases on February 11th of 2025. It's approximately 320 pages and should be available by the time that I release this episode. I will just do one caveat. It says it's like horror and fantasy and romance, and I feel like it tries to hit almost too many genres by saying it's like horror, but it's fantasy, but it's romance, but it's gothic, but it's paranormal, but it's historical fiction. I'm just like, that's a little much. Like, that's a whole lot of genres. You just tried to cover like everything to be a catch-all. So, I think this book, and I'd probably give it about a 4.25 stars as my general rating, but I might round it up to 5 stars for Goodreads. Is that I feel like they tried to do a lot, and we probably could have maybe focused just a little bit more at certain points, but honestly, I'm not mad. I'm really not mad about this book at all. So let's dive into the summary. A young woman forced to live with ghosts in a mansion frozen in time must decide between forbidden love and the price of freedom in this gothic fantasy where Jane Eyre meets the haunting of Blythe Manor. Perfect for fans of Starling House, which I just bought a copy of the Starling House, but I might have put it over on my bookshelf over there. At Thorne Hall, a grand estate nestled in the Berkshires, 15 restless spirits roam, bound within the mansion's walls since the Gilded Age. Elegy Thorne bears the weight of her family's curse to preserve the mansion as it was in the 1980s or 1890s, using ancient folk songs to keep the spirits secret and silent in order to avoid deadly consequences. When a mischievous child spirit wreaks havoc on the manor, the Thorne family calls upon their trusted preservationist to restore the mansion. He brings along his son Atticus, a vibrant man full of life and ideas of modernization, and Elegy is captivated by him, igniting a longing for freedom she's never dared to embrace. Torn between her desire to follow her heart and her duty to her family, its legacy, Elegy begins searching for a way to release the spirit collection back to the afterlife and set both herself and the ghost free. The century-old secrets, peculiar magic, and spirit, both whimsical and deadly, Thorne Hall will haunt and enrapture reader, and you just might not want to leave. So, there you go. That is your summary. I will say I did have the audio version, And the really fun thing is the author actually read it. So she was the narrator of her book. And I think that just makes it so much more special when the author gets to narrate their books. And because then you get to kind of, I don't want to say you get to envision it the way they, you get the inflections that they intend when they're writing it in their mind and then they're putting it onto paper. So when they then read it, you also kind of get all of those inflections in names and situations, kind of how they build up to certain things that I think is really important. Sometimes, like, I don't mind external narrators, people who, like, sometimes I'll pick up books because I just love the narrators, and I've encountered quite a few of them. I think Luke Daniels is somebody I end up, like, picking up a lot of audiobooks by, like, his narration. But like, I thought she did a fantastic job. So kudos to her for that. So let's dive into my thoughts, which are, I liked this book. I thought it was pretty good. But as it says, Elegy Thorne is kind of cursed with having to take care of this house, and her dad is still alive. He is still within the walls, but he is ailing. And everything in the house must be as original as possible. It must retain that 1890s feeling. So even though the outside world, internet is happening, computers are happening, people have cell phones and cars and just, whatever, Ford Fiesta driving people, things are happening that are like normal day-to-day modern life. None of that gets to come through the doors of Thorne Hall. So Elegy, even though she was more or less born in this house, is forced to wear clothing from the 1890s. Like, everything is so incredibly fragile and old just because it is literally over 100 years old. She is trying to live her life in a house that is unable to embrace anything of the present time. And so I could never figure out why that was the case. Like the ghost, we get a little understanding of why the ghost and the promises made there, but I couldn't figure out why we couldn't bring too many modern things into the house. It was supposedly going to like make the ghost angry or something. Well, if you are a Thorne, if you are of the lineage of Thorne, then you have a certain ability to kind of placate the ghosts. You have an ability to pacify them in order for them to hopefully do little to no harm to guests or, visitors or yourself. She's got to be very careful about closing doors, and there's runes on various doors for her to be able to kind of protect herself from ghosts so they can't bother her while she's sleeping and that sort of thing. The way she gets news of the outside world is she has two best friends, one of which is named Floss, and I kind of forget the name of her other best friend, but still, really, she met them when she was younger. They came to like a house party with their parents, and they kind of all wandered off, and they kind of became friends at that time, and Elegy introduced them to one of the ghosts, and they kind of freaked out, but it kind of solidified their bonding moment at that time. And Floss does still come to visit the boy. I had just blanked on his name as I was going to say it. I was just like blank. He still comes to visit every once in a while as well, but she rarely seems to leave. Like, she may go to town just absolutely sparingly, or she may accompany her father to one of the other manors, but she's almost always in this house. And so she gets news either through Floss visiting or her other friend visiting, or newspapers. Like, newspapers are the one thing that can come in daily in order for her to kind of know what's going on in the outside world. Well, one day, one of the childhood spirits, he kind of wreaks a little havoc in the kitchen, causing like 2 feet of water, like significant flooding. So they have to call their contractor. And so the contractor comes out and ends up bringing his son Atticus. Well, Elegy is pretty much kind of smitten from the very beginning. Now, Elegy is mid to early 20s at this particular point. I want to say she's somewhere around 24-ish years old. And it sounded like through the book she had one slightly bad makeout session, and that's been her experience of kind of knowing what romance is. And so she kind of has to live vicariously through Floss and her other friend, because they're the ones living on the outside who get to date, who get to experience things, and she just has to sit in her house and pretty much just read, which is fine. I love reading, but I also need to get out of the house, like, frequently. And so with all that, just kind of thing, she does, I don't want to give spoilers, I'm not going to try to give spoilers, but she does fall head over heels for Atticus. And I think he finds her really intriguing because she is so just unique, different, quirky. She seems to be this girl, this pale girl, wearing these old antiquated clothes in this modern time, and he's kind of intrigued. So, and I don't even know if she even really knows it, but he promises to come to town or come to her house when his dad comes. But when he doesn't come, she gets upset, and she's like, how dare he stand me up? How dare he say he's coming and he doesn't come? So she goes to the butler, and she's like, I need the car. So she goes, and her butler gets out this I think it's like a Rolls Royce Phantom, and I think I looked it up, and it was a gorgeous looking car, but again, it's old. And she drives to town in order to find him so she can confront him about the fact that he didn't show up. And I don't think she thought it through about how that's going to look. But he was like, oh, so you came looking for me? And she's like, no, I was looking for a book. And I'm like, girl, you can't fake it. You can't pretend at this moment, because you've already put your feet in it. So you might as well just tell him yes and see what happens. So they have some wine and they chat, and it's pretty cute. But anyway, I'm not going to try to give spoilers. I do think it plays out well. I can't, like, the ghosts are a really cool aspect. I kind of wish I'd had a little bit more spooky stuff happening, but there are some spooky things they do. It's not super horrific. I mean, there is one in the basement. He's kind of supposed to be super scary. And then there's like 15 ghosts. There are 15 ghosts, and they were brought in pretty much by like a medium and trapped within the walls of the house, trapped in the house. And so ultimately the reason that the ghosts are there, just to kind of give you a justification, is it's kind of like the family, I guess you could say. It's kind of like the ghosts of the past. And I don't know why we couldn't let them rest, but I do understand the last ghost and why the last ghost was kept, but I don't know why we had to keep all of the other ones, and we couldn't, unless they had unfinished business and they kind of were seeking to come back. I think there were a couple of things I don't feel were completely ironed out for me, but I do like the speculation, and I do love a good ghost story. Again, I like how this one plays out, and I think it was pretty well done. I cannot imagine a second book in a series. I think this is a one and done. However, she could explore whatever, like, kind of having that knack for talking to ghosts sort of thing. She could have, there could be a future where she maybe could train an apprentice if she finds someone with a knack. I'm just saying, but we could explore that if we wanted to. I'm not saying she needs to. I do feel like this is a good rounded out story in itself, but if we wanted to explore kind of a little bit more, I also see where she could do that as well. But with all of that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, for liking, for subscribing, for sticking around, and just hearing me talk about books pretty frequently. Sometimes I drink tea, which right before I started this episode, I finished my tea. And so now I have no tea to consume. But I shall be making some more, and then I will be checking to see if it's raining so I can take my puppies out. And then I will be coming back to finish off The Lich Before the Darkness so I can review that for you guys next. Thank you so much. I hope you'll like and subscribe. Stick around for next time, and I'll see you guys on the next page. Have a great one. Bye.